Hey everyone, in here with Train Like You Fight, and this week we are actually revisiting my custom-built piston-driven AR-15. And I built this thing 6 years ago, and so it's still going strong, and the original review for this thing sucked, frankly speaking. So I decided that it was time to redo the review, give you guys an update, and tell you guys how this build's been going, because it's still my primary go-to AR-15, and it's been running strong for 6 years. So I feel like that's a testament to the build quality of it and everything. So there have been changes made to the rifle over the years, only a few changes, but I think they're pretty important changes. And obviously now that I'm older, I can have a little more money in my pocket. I can put some more rounds through it than I did in the original review, which I think I maybe shot 10 rounds, if that even. So definitely been putting this thing through its paces over the years, and it's held up beautifully. So let's start with the muzzle on here. The muzzle, this is a Surefire War Comp. This thing is awesome because it's a compensator, it's a flash hider, it kind of does it all. It's way better than the original Precision Armament Severe Duty Comp I had on here, which was a great muzzle brake for reducing recoil, but it spit fireballs, it concussed even the shooter on the range. So it was just a very unpleasant muzzle brake to shoot with. But I mean, it took away almost all the recoil. But after switching over to this, I do get a little bit more felt recoil, but I'll take that any day over being concussed by my own rifle. So that was a pretty logical upgrade to make to this rifle after I learned a little bit about the differences between different muzzle devices. Now our barrel on here, this is unfortunately a discontinued barrel. This is the Daniel Defense S2W barrel. This is a heavy profiled barrel. Now when I originally built this, I really didn't know much about barrel profiles. I just knew Daniel Defense made some of the best stuff out there, and I really wanted one of their barrels. So now if I were to do this again, I probably would go with something a little bit lighter, maybe even a pencil barrel, but this has been a great barrel. It takes forever for it to heat up. It's sub MOA. It's cold hand forged, chrome lined. It's a 16-inch barrel with a 1-in-8 twist. So you get 2 full rotations out of the bullet before it leaves the barrel. So it's an incredible barrel. It just adds a little bit of weight to this rifle, which the overall weight of the rifle with a full 30-round magazine is 10 pounds, pretty much right on the dot, which for some people may be extremely heavy if you run super light ARs all the time, but it's a very well balanced rifle, so I don't have any issues with it. It's not quite as pointable as some ultra lightweight AR, but I find it very comfortable to shoot. I don't get worn out from shooting this thing or carrying around or anything. So great barrel. If Daniel Defense ever decided to bring them back, I would highly recommend them. Just realize you're going to add a little bit of weight to your rifle. Now, our rail system on here, this is a Daniel Defense Light Rail 3. Now, Daniel Defense doesn't call their rails like 1, 2, and 3 anymore. It's just the light rail. And it's been a great rail. It's held up great over the years. Has very few scratches just because I wrapped it in all these XTM rail covers. But it's a 12-inch rail, and it does weigh about 4 ounces more than, say, an M-LOK handguard. But back when I built this in 2015, M-LOK was kind of up and coming, like key mod, and I really didn't want to roll the dice on key mod or M-LOK, so I'm glad I went with a rail system. Now yes, it is a little bit heavier, but I have no intentions of getting rid of it, just because it is a very expensive rail and it works really well, and I'm not going to sacrifice a $400 rail for a few ounces. So maybe my next AR build I'll throw an M-LOK handguard on there. But underneath our handguard here, we do have a CIRAC Ordnance piston kit, and I'll show you guys a little bit more of that in a second. But it's been a great piston kit. Unfortunately, they are also out of business, or their CIRAC Ordnance went out of business, so you can no longer get the CIRAC Ordnance retrofit piston kit. But Superlative Arms now makes the exact same piston kit, and so if you're looking for one of these retrofit piston kits, Superlative Arms is the way to go. It's been a great piston kit. Once I finally got it all dialed in, it's been working great ever since then. Our upper receiver, this is a Veltor MUR. These things are great. They're kind of beefed up, they're specifically designed for more precision rifles, but I knew pistons are a little harder on upper receivers than direct gas impingement, so I opted for a beefier upper receiver, something that I knew was going to hold up to the extra wear and tear that a piston does on an upper receiver. So no issues there. Like I said, been going strong for 6 years. We do have an EOTech 512 on here. This is actually an L3 EOTech, so just kind of shows you how old this thing is. I've never really had any issues with it. I had one day where I had thermal drift issues, and it was like 100+ degrees on the range, and then I redialed it in and it was great. So I had no real reason to get rid of it. Once it finally starts falling apart on me, then maybe I'll look to upgrading. But yes, this old EOTech still runs great. We do have Magpul MBUS sights, nothing much to talk about there. Our lower receiver, this is a Noveske lower, not a whole lot to talk about there. It's a very high quality lower, and I don't really run a special selector switch or bolt catch, just your typical parts kit one, and I have no reason to really swap it out for anything fancy. Something else about the upper receiver, we do have an enhanced shell deflector, which you kind of see there, and I really like it. It's you can see from over the years, it's built up a nice line of brass from where brass has kicked off it over the years. Works great, especially if any of my left-handed shooters ever shoot this thing. They never catch brass to the face because, well, the enhanced shell deflector does its job very well. Now, our charging handle, this is a Radian Raptor charging handle, great charging handle. Been running great for 6 years now, and no reason to get rid of it. Grip, Magpul MOE grip. We do have a dual sling plate back here. I don't know who makes it, but it's a good option to use, especially if you ever run 1-point slings, which I've kind of gotten out of the habit of doing. I just run a 2-point sling from now on, really. But we do have a Veltor 7-position stock on here, which is kind of weird, but it is a numbered stock too, which was one of the main reasons I got it. But that extra 7 position is kind of nice to have sometimes. The only issue with it is with a standard butt stock, you cannot collapse it all the way down to the 1 position. So this thing will collapse down, like you can barely see the edge of the 1 right there, which I think is kind of funny. But I never shoot the rifle in anything less than a 3, so it's never been an issue with me. And then we have our B5 Industry SOP mod stock, pretty standard for most rifle builds out there. A lot of guys like the SOP mod stock. I think it's a great stock. All right, so let's open our rifle up a bit, and I'll show you the piston kit here. So as you can tell, there is no gas key on the top here. It's just a spot for the piston to interface with, and it works great. I've never had any issues with the piston kit. Actually, I did have a couple issues, which I'll dive into in a minute, but it's been a great piston kit. I've never had any issues with it outside of the ones I'm about to get into, so I've been very happy with it. We do have a nickel boron bolt from HM Defense. This is something that they sent me out, and it's really cool. I'll have to show you guys in the B-roll because I don't want to disassemble my bolt carrier out here in the field, but it's really cool. Not only that it's nickel boron, but they do not bore the cam pin hole all the way through, which is a really cool thing that they do. Now our hammer here, this is a Geisley 3-gun trigger in here, or hammer, what am I talking about? Our trigger is a Geisley 3-gun trigger, and it's an awesome trigger. I'm not a huge fan of the, I believe it's the the gold spring that the trigger comes with. That's about 4.5 to 5 pounds of trigger weight, and it has a long pull to it, and I wasn't very happy with it, but it comes with 2 springs. I swapped it out for the black spring, which is between 2.5 and 3 pounds, and it's super clean. It's just an awesome trigger. Has a very predictable pull to it, and you can really rack off some rounds pretty fast with it because of the short reset. So I think it's a great trigger. I definitely think there are some better triggers out there, but for a 3-gun, like 2-gun type trigger, I think it's awesome. This is also my first flat face trigger that I've ever installed in a gun, and I think it's been great. So I highly recommend it if you're looking for a good trigger that's very reliable and has a nice short reset to it. Now our buffer system, this is a JP Enterprises silent capture spring, and I've heard people say that they don't trust these things. Well, I can tell you it's been going strong for 6 years, and the only issue I ever had with this was, and you might be able to see it, there's a more silvery colored weight here, and then these two are a little bit darker, and that's because these two are tungsten and this one is stainless steel. And the issue was I didn't have enough energy to push the bolt into battery with this rifle because of the piston kit. So I did some research and found out that JP Enterprises actually sold this where you can get 1, 2, or even 3 tungsten weights to give it a little more weight to push the bolt into battery, and it works great. Ever since I changed this out for the 2 tungsten weights, got rid of the stainless steel weights and added these on here. It's worked flawlessly ever since. And I have no intentions of ever really swapping it out for any other type of buffer system. It works absolutely amazingly. Something I'll show you guys real quick also is I had to add this little piece of plastic. This comes with the silent capture spring. I had to cut it down to size because I have that extra inch of adjustment on my buttstock. So our silent capture spring actually sat too far back in the buffer tube, and this is actually for an M16 length stock, so it was about twice this length, and all I did was cut it down to the size that I needed for that extra 7th position for the buffer tube, and it's worked great ever since. So never really had any issues with this rifle, guys. It has been an incredible rifle, very smooth shooting. I would say that the silent capture spring really makes this probably one of the smoothest shooting rifles I've ever handled, and I would say I find it even better than other piston driven rifles like LWRCs and stuff like that. I know that's a bold statement. LWRCs are probably some of the best piston driven rifles out there, but you don't even hear the spring moving inside the buffer tube or anything like that. So as for the shooting experience with this guy, it is pretty incredible. Very smooth shooting. Most of that I think is due to the silent capture spring. The piston kit, I know there's a lot of skeptics out there with piston kits and AR-15s because people don't think or think because the AR wasn't designed with a piston that it doesn't work, it won't be reliable. I'm here to tell you that it works perfectly, especially the Sirac Ordnance piston kit. It is an adjustable piston kit, so you can take a little Allen wrench and put it in into the actual piston, and you can open or close the amount of gas on here. So if I were to redo this build, I could even do it now, I could even have a chunk of this rail system cut away, probably take it into a gunsmith to do that, so I can have quicker access to those gas adjustments, just in case maybe I slap a suppressor on this guy and I need to quickly adjust it from the gas so I'm not overgassing the rifle. But besides that, guys, this has been an incredible rifle. I've shot tons of matches with this guy. I've taken it to different classes. I was even at a range once where a guy had an actual M16 lower that did 3-round bursts, and I slapped this guy on it and it worked great. So I know it's full auto rated from the factory, but I actually got to put that to the test and see how it held up. I will say the only thing with a piston kit is when you are shooting a piston kit, you do get a lot more heat coming from the front end of this rifle. So maybe a heavier barrel is the way to go with one of these, but you will notice it if you run one of these that the front end of your rifle, if you have like rail covers like this, they start to get a little darker. That's from all the carbon ejecting from the front end of the rifle here. So guys, that's pretty much it for this rifle. I was just really excited to bring it back to you guys, show you guys kind of what I've done to it over the years, how I swapped out the muzzle, got a new trigger in it, and kind of those are really the only upgrades I've done to this guy over the years. So that's it for now, guys. I want to thank you for watching, and remember to train like you fight.